Posted by John David Anderson. Chapter 10, The Sword. Sometimes things stick, like frost on a windshield or chewed up pecan rolls to the roof of your mouth, and it's annoying, especially when you can't get rid of them. Other times, though, they catch fire, like a too short fuse leading to a toilet paper roll full of gunpowder that you've sprinkled inside, and then they explode. It happens all the time. Stupid dances, catchy pop songs, videos of people acting like total fools. Things you wouldn't expect. The right person finds it, likes it, favorites it, tweets it, endorses it, gives it 4 stars, 2 thumbs up, and then it just spreads like an avalanche, like the common cold. Like a nuclear arms race. First 1 bomb, then 2, then hundreds, then thousands, piled up in silos. It's called proliferation. That was the fancy name given to the building of all those nuclear missiles 60 years ago. I know because I read all about it while sipping juice in the middle of the smoothie shop, sitting across from one of my best friends and somebody who looked to be on the way to becoming his best friend. That's what happened with the sticky notes. They proliferated, went viral. In a matter of days, they went from something only we were doing to the thing to do. By the end of the week, we knew it was big, and not just because every 3rd or 4th locker you saw had a note attached. It was the color change. The notes weren't all yellow anymore, which meant students weren't using the ones they'd been forced to buy for school. They were going out and buying new pads of sticky notes. Blue, hot pink, neon green, the color of cartoon toxic waste. Different sizes, too, long rectangles, arrows, some shaped like hearts. Apparently they made sticky notes shaped like poop. I saw one on the outside of the gym. The notes jumped the social fences. Preps and nerds, goths and floaters, popular, not so popular, rich kids, poor kids, all the in-between kids. Everyone was writing them. Literally overnight, they were everywhere. Viva la revolution. The biggest clue came as we walked into Mr. Sword's class on Friday and saw the blank Post-its, standard yellow, sitting on our desks. There was also a quote on the board from Albert Einstein. It said, 2 things are infinite, the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not so sure about the universe. I thought about Wolf and sitting on the curb outside the smoothie shop, talking about the potential end of the world. Who can tell me what aphorism is? Mr. Sword said once we'd all settled down into our usual spots. Isn't that when the blood in your brain explodes? Samantha Bowles guessed. I had seen her reading a note when I walked in, eyes wide with whatever gossip was scrawled on it. That's an aneurysm, but thanks for playing. Yes, Mariana? It's a bug that eats trees. No, you're thinking of aphids, but again, nice try. Mr. Sword was already out of hands to call on. An aphorism is a pithy or witty saying, he continued, like a little kernel of wisdom wrapped up in a single sentence. We might think of them as quotes, except they're designed to say something deep and true about the world, and not all quotes do that. Like, life sucks and then you die, Noah Kyle suggested. Or, girls drool, boys rule, someone else chimed in. So lame, Amanda Shockey said. Her hair was purple today. How about, may the force be with you, Max Connors offered. I kind of liked Max. Even more lame. It's actually lamer, Mr. Sword corrected. And no, aphorisms go a little deeper than that. They speak to something universal about the human condition. They can be humorous and often are, but they should always make you think. They should be true in some way. So they're like memes, someone said? I guess, in a way, though most of you, or most of what you'll find on the internet is just obnoxious or cruel. The truth can be cruel sometimes. I glanced over at Wolf, a little surprised. He wasn't much for speaking up in class. He fiddled with a blank note, sticking it to his desk and then peeling it off over and over again. And that, Mr. Sword said, pointing at Wolf, is much more like an aphorism. Then he went to the board and started writing furiously. I've noticed that you've all taken to posting little messages for each other, no doubt in response to your recent change in cell phone policy. I've actually read a few of them, and while Liam Helmsworth is hot may sound to some of you like universal truth, I hardly think it qualifies as a profound thought that requires sharing. Therefore, I think it's worth taking a time out from Caesar's plight in ancient Rome to think about the power that language can have. After all, the Romans ate aphorisms for breakfast. You, Mariana said. I'm pretty sure she was thinking of aphids still. So here's your assignment, Mr. Sword said. You have 10 minutes to think of your own original aphorism, some witty little revelation that you can fit on a 3-inch piece of sticky note in front of you. Write it down, and I'll come around and approve it. Then after class, I want you to find someone in the school to leave your message. Some place where your aphorism will get the attention of the people who would benefit most from reading it. This is your chance to change someone's perspective, to teach them something about the world in 20 words or less. A hand went up behind me. Mr. Sword pointed. You're kidding, right? Cameron said. No offense, Mr. Sword, but this is kind of stupid. Doesn't matter what we write. Somebody else is just going to come along and toss it in the trash. So what's the point? The point, Mr. Cole, is that all of us have something meaningful to share. Mr. Sword shot back. Maybe you're right. Maybe most of these notes will simply be thrown away. But if just one of you writes something that strikes a chord and gets another person thinking, then I think it's worth it, don't you? He pointed back and took up his chalk. I'm putting up a few more examples on the board just to get your pistons firing. Don't just quote something you've heard your grandmother say. Tap into something you know about yourself, something you've realized about the way the world works. Don't make it too personal. I don't want anybody's name on any of these, but they can come from a personal place. There was another chorus of protest, and I watched Mr. Sword continue writing for a moment, scribbling one saying after another in his sloppy script covering the board. He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know. He wrote another one. Freedom is the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And another. The early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. And finally, the pen is mightier than the sword. Unless you're a cave troll, Didi murmured. I instantly conjured an image of writing utensil-wielding hobbits plunging sharpies into the backs of orcs, except instead of blood, the bodies spilled ink. Mr. Sword snapped me right out of it. You are going to put this out in the world for others to see. You can write something provocative, something challenging, something passionate and opinionated and even potentially dangerous. But keep it clean. Don't write anything that would get you in trouble. I watched Didi furiously erase what he had written. Mr. Sword went back to his board. I stared at my sticky note. Something deep. I thought about the notebook tucked under my mattress at home, full of secret poems written over the past 3 years. There was probably something in there that would work. In the course of 50 verses, surely I'd said something meaningful, at least one thing. As soon as Mr. Sword's back was turned, I felt a kick in the back of my chair. You should be good at this, right, Frost? Noah Kyle whispered, snickering. Yeah, Frost, let's see what you've got. Jason Baker arched out of his seat, trying to look over my shoulder. I covered my note with both hands, even though I'd written nothing yet, and cursed my fifth-grade teacher all over again. Back off, Wolf said in a hushed voice, turning and glaring at both of them. Jason cocked his head to one side. I'm sorry, was I even talking to you? He leaned in close to Noah. I think I offended his boyfriend. A stern whip-around look from Mr. Sword was enough to drop Jason back into his seat. 8 minutes, he warned. I entertained a brief image of Jason and Noah being mauled by a pack of starved lions in the middle of the Colosseum in front of a cheering crowd. Too much Roman history, I guess, and then turned back to my blank note. Around the room, there was a lot of pencil tapping. Sitting by the door, Rose had both fists clenched around clumps of hair. I looked at Wolf's desk. He seemed to be finished already. His paper flipped over, so I couldn't read it. I stared at my own blank square and tried to think of something worth sharing with the rest of the world, something profound. The world had plenty of problems, like people who kicked the back of your chair and wouldn't leave you alone, but nothing I could say was going to change any of them. Mr. Sword called 2 minutes. I scribbled something down. He who laughs last laughs longest, but he who farts loudest gets the room to himself. Maybe true, but not exactly insightful, so I erased it, pressed the end of my pencil to my nose. I glanced behind me in time to see Cameron Cole attaching his post-it to his forehead. It said, I'm with stupid, and had arrows pointing in every possible direction. All right, time's up, Mr. Sword said. Make sure it's legible. There's no point in sharing your wisdom with the world if the world can't read it. I had nothing, so I just wrote the thing that seemed most true to me in that moment, something I'd been thinking about for the past couple of days. It barely fit on the yellow square, and I had to scrunch the letters at the end. Okay, go ahead and share what you've written with one other person in class. Ask them what they think. How does it make them feel? Angry, wistful, optimistic? Meanwhile, I will come around and make sure everyone's nugget of wisdom is appropriate. Mr. Cole, I can already tell that yours is not. Cameron peeled the stupid note from his forehead and started to erase it. I gave Wolf my note with a shrug. I couldn't really think of anything, I told him. He read it and stuck it to the edge of my desk. It's good, he said. In fact, I can think of a few people in this room who should read it. He didn't need to name names. Mr. Sword appeared beside my desk and held out his hand. He read my note, whispering something to himself. If you only listen to what others say, you'll never hear yourself think. That's pretty good, Eric. Then he looked across at Wolf, who held his note up, half folded, as if he were embarrassed to share it. Mr. Sword's expression changed as he read it. He frowned slightly and then nodded thoughtfully and handed it back to Wolf. Couldn't have said it better myself. Wolf took his note and then gave it to me. We'd both been thinking of the same thing, but Mr. Sword was right. Wolf had said it better. Dee Dee leaned over and showed us his. It said, "The truth is just a lie we agree to believe in." What does that even mean? I asked. I have no idea, Dee Dee said. My first one was about floaters, so this one was definitely an improvement. Mr. Sword finished his inspection, giving almost everyone his stamp of approval, and went back to the front of the room and told us it was time to get back to Shakespeare, so that we could appreciate someone who really understood how to use their language. When English was over, we all filed out the door, sticky notes in hand, ready to cover the world with our bits of wisdom. Rose waited for us in the hall. She showed me what she had written. A beautiful mind is worth more than a pretty face. Well, tell that to Liam Hemsworth, I said. Or half the kids in this school, Dee Dee seconded. I plan on it, Rose said. In fact, I think I'll stick it right outside the cafeteria for maximum exposure. She looked at me. Where are you going to put yours? I shrugged, glanced around, and then stuck the note above the water fountain just outside Mr. Sword's room. Seemed as good a place as any. Dee said he was going to stick his outside the gym to give people something to think about while they were getting pummeled with dodgeballs. What about you, Wolf? Where's yours going? But Wolf had already tucked his aphorism away. I'm just going to hang on to it for a while, he said. Throughout the day, notes continued to pop up everywhere, not just on lockers, on bathroom stalls, teachers' doors, windows, display cases. There was one on the fire alarm that said, "In case of emergency, run," though that one didn't stay up very long. There was another one on the first stall of the boys' bathroom that said, "Toxic waste site, proceed with caution." There were dozens more. One posted outside a computer lab that warned "Nerd Crossing," and it had a picture of a stick figure in glasses. Another outside the band room that said the same. The one outside the teacher's lounge said, "Warning, zombies spotted in area." It didn't stay long either. Cameron Cole was right. As much as I hated to admit it, a lot of the notes were removed almost as soon as they were posted, but not all of them. Some were clever. Others were just dumb. Then there were the ones from Mr. Sword's class. You could tell because the words often filled the whole square and most made you want to vomit in your mouth. Things like, "A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet," and "There's no Band-Aid for a broken heart." Per Mr. Sword's instruction, they were all anonymous, but you could sometimes tell who they were from, if not from the handwriting, then from the cheesy message itself. I recognized the one attached to Jason Baker's locker instantly. I'd read it once already. I even stuck around long enough to see Jason show up and peel the note free, clumping it into a marble-sized wad and dropping it onto the floor. I waited till he was gone before I went and picked it up and read it again to myself. Words are ghosts that can haunt us forever. I put it in my backpack, thinking the person who wrote it might want it back, that he might find a better place to put it. Getting a message through to some people was like trying to hammer a nail through a concrete block with your forehead. It would take something more than a few words penned on a sticky note to get Jason Baker's attention. In his case, the sword would probably have been mightier than the pen. I forgot all about the note by lunch, though, and it stayed in my backpack. Bench skipped out again, saying he had to talk to Coach Mallory about something. He didn't say what, and I didn't ask. Instead, I sat between Dee and Rose, and we played another game where we tried to see who could keep a corn chip in their mouth the longest without crunching it. I was the first one out. Rose won handily. She seemed to be in a very good mood, smiling and laughing and teasing Dee mercilessly. But Wolf seemed distant, mouth tight at the corners, his rectangle of pizza just untouched. It wasn't until just after or just before the bell rang that I found out why. "Are you even going to show them?" he asked. Rose shrugged. "Show them what? It's no big deal." Then suddenly serious look on her face, almost like a warning to Wolf to keep his mouth shut, suggested otherwise. "What's no big deal?" Dee asked. With a roll of her eyes, Rose reached into her pocket and pulled a Post-it free, sticking it to the middle of the table for the rest of us to see. I found it inside my math book. Somebody must have slipped it in there while I wasn't looking. It's nothing, seriously. There are so many worse things. She stared at Wolf, who stared right back, the two of them silently continuing some conversation they'd already started. Dee and I looked at the note. It obviously wasn't from the ones in Mr. Sword's class. There were no words aside from her name, no signature, no way of knowing who wrote it, but the meaning was clear. A moose holding a rose in its teeth. The war had begun. End of chapter 10.